dual enrollment or early college expansion, not only at CSN, but across the entire state. If you tuned in again to Dr. Zaragoza's presentations, you would have heard that enrollment and early college access is one of the top 5 imperatives for him and his vision as it relates to our strategic plan. And so I want to share with you exactly everything I know related to the work that's happening with the statewide dual enrollment task force. This is a task force made up of school districts across the state, the Nevada Department of Education, our secondary governing bodies, as well as each of the NSHE institutions. And I've had the opportunity to sit in on this task force on behalf of CSN since its inception over the last several months. And the charge is sort of threefold, looking at bullet 1 there. The first is to arrive at a common pricing structure for students, regardless if they're taking classes at Western Nevada College or Truckee Meadows College or Great Basin or CSN. But in looking at that price point, it's really about equitable access. In other words, we want to make sure that we're deploying early college experiences, dual and concurrent enrollment experiences in every zip code across this valley and across the state, regardless of whether or not a parent may have gone to college or not, or whether or not a student never would have thought perhaps that they were even college material. Every student in this valley, in this state, should have at least access to early college experiences and the right kind of access, right? Going back to where we were talking earlier about meeting our students where they are. And so pricing has across the state been, or cost to the student or cost to the high school has been a variable that has gotten in the way. It's been an obstacle to some students accessing early college. And so the task force has been charged to take on a common pricing structure by institutional tier type. So the universities, the 2 R1s, for example, will be under one pricing structure for dual enrollment. The state college will be a little bit less than what they're charging, and the community colleges will certainly be less than what the other 2 tiers are charging, universities and the state college. But all the community colleges will charge the same low price, if you will. The second point of the charge is instructor credential approach. In other words, particularly for the Jumpstart concurrent enrollment model, this is the model, if you're not familiar, where we have qualified secondary teachers, high school teachers who have advanced level degrees and experience to be able to deploy our curriculum, our syllabi, our student learning outcomes in their instruction, and they're evaluated accordingly by CSN subject matter experts. So the approach here, though, that the state task force is taking on is to look at potential teachers from the lens of a comprehensive 360 sort of evaluation and determining whether or not they're qualified to be able to teach these courses. So this is moving the institutions across the state away from just looking at transcripts, because no doubt there could be instructors who have advanced levels of degrees and who may not be good teachers, frankly. And the opposite could be true. We could have teachers who are fabulous teachers and great content experts in their field, but just don't have the right advanced level degree. And so taking that 360 approach is what the state task force is asking the institutions to do. They are not, hear me clearly, they are not prescribing instructor credentials. Those are obviously, as always, left up to the institutions, as they should be. But again, taking that 360 approach is important. And then finally, to make sure and to ensure the rigor and the quality control is in place, and making sure all of our dual enrollment faculty, particularly those that are in our high schools, have professional development and training opportunities that are discipline specific. They have the opportunity to engage with faculty at our institution through dialogue and continued growth, and frankly ensure that the quality assurances are put into place with classroom observations, just like we would for all of our faculty. And so that, building out what that will look like in terms of approach, at least, is another piece of the work of the state task force. You need to know that the NSHE institutional environment across the state is incredibly competitive for dual enrollment. For those of you who've been around a long time, you remember when each of the institutions within NSHE had sort of a service region, right? And we served our service region, usually bound by zip codes within our geographic space across the states. And a number of years ago, the Board of Regents kind of dissolved service regions. And in the context of dual enrollment, what we're finding is institutions up north are coming into the south here and deploying all kinds of dual enrollment activity, and vice versa from the south to the north. And no doubt it's an opportunity to create a pipeline of continued enrollment post high school for a lot of our institutions in the state. So when I say it's competitive, I mean it is competitive. We're seeing in some cases high schools that we've been engaged with for years that are sort of saying no thank you now to us and moving over to UNR or Nevada State College, and also we're recouping some more that we didn't have previously. So it's kind of going both ways. So the president has laid out a strategic target for CSN that by 2025, we hope to have 15,000 students from every zip code represented in our early college programming, through a variety of different models. Just to give you perspective, right now we're somewhere between 4,800 and 5,500 students a year engage with us in dual enrollment. So we're a little over a third of the way there. Another goal for our vision for dual enrollment expansion is equitable access with students on purposeful pathways. So one of the areas that we were successful in with the legislature this last session was Assembly Bill 319. And if you were following that Assembly Bill, that was sort of the CSN's dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment bill. And what that did for the institution is it spotlighted the importance of deploying certain career and technical education pathways to students in underrepresented zip codes to capitalize on the great infrastructure that many of these high schools have, particularly the Career Technical Academy high schools have. And we can make sure that our curriculum is deployed with alignment to our outcomes and deployed by faculty who meet our credentialing requirements. So we'll see 1,000 students actually, and the president mentioned this today, we'll see 1,000 students over this biennium experience AB 319 outcome with a very purposeful CTE pathways, everything from automotive to culinary and hospitality to graphic communication and mechanical technologies, et cetera. And then finally, you heard from the president that the imperative to continue staying the course with the multi-campus model and the migration. And he referenced a variety of different units that would be continuing to migrate into this sort of campus-based operational approach. And one of those areas is dual enrollment in early college, where we will essentially be putting folks on the ground on each of our campuses to make sure that we have a relationship with all of our high schools and that the students in the various service areas for each of our campuses know that they have access to early college programming as well. The other move here, of course, that I wanted to share is we will keep the operations, the strategic visioning and the assessment and quality control and all the like within academic affairs at CSN as a central operation for early college and dual enrollment, and that will be under the AVP for academic affairs. What you're going to see is first and foremost that when we talked about purposeful pathways, it's not just about obviously throwing anything out there for dual enrollment and giving students the opportunity to take a potpourri of classes. It's about purposeful arrangement. We heard the president talk about the importance of staying the course with guided pathways, for example. And so as we build out these pathways that are applicable for students that are still in high school to be successful in, no doubt will be at the table. Matter of fact, as we develop this more robust infrastructure for support, I was just talking to a couple of our department chair colleagues as well last week, even on this topic. We've got to make sure that resources are made available to our academic departments to help meet this scale need, right? So, for example, in the English department and in the math department, two of our largest dual enrollment course pathways, we have a full-time 1 FTE position that is dedicated to being the dual enrollment liaison. And they do everything from vet potential instructors to provide our instructors with professional development and training to observing the classroom instruction at the high school site, all things, A to Z, nuts to bolts. Dual enrollment. And so as we grow this purposefully, there'll be an opportunity to make sure that you have a significant voice at the table for describing the kinds of resource needs that might be necessary to be able to bring this to full scale. So there's a lot of moving parts in managing this population, but literally what it does, and this is why I think it's so exciting, is it shows students, particularly the students that have never thought that they were college material, after they've been successful in our curriculum, in many ways on our campuses, they've made the decision to go to college and further their own academic pursuits. And that excites me to no end, recognizing that more and more students in this valley see their home at CSN after high school.